and founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here to share the speaker portion of our Connections After Hours gathering of the On Purpose Woman Global Community. My guests tonight are Claudette Gadsden and Rosemary Robertson Bredeson, and the three of us will be talking about how to take your next step with clarity and grace. Claudette and Rosemary, welcome and thank you for being with me.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank
Fun.
you.
I'm going to have each of you tell us a little about yourselves and what your work is. So Claudette, why don't you go first?
My name is Claudette Gadsden. As Jenny said, thank you again, Jenny, for this wonderful invitation. And I am innkeeper at Temple in the Woods, which is a bed and breakfast off the beaten path in Corrette, Virginia. It is truly a place to nourish your soul. I am also a conversation coach at Coach Claudette and Associates, and I help my clients have better conversations because every conversation starts with an inner dialogue. So what are you saying to yourself? Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. Claudette's website is both websites is in the text of this video. Before I move on to Rosemary, Claudette, I have to ask you, did you see a recent TV show or recent viewing of CBS Sunday Morning about the beavers? Claudette has beavers on her property. And I've been there like 4 times now. And yeah, they did a show about beavers. And it was really, see if you can find it online. I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay, I was outside listening to them this morning, chomping on trees. And I wanted to go and see what trees they took down, but I didn't.
No. Okay, Rosemary.
Well, I'm Rosemary Robertson Bredeson, the scientific mystic, and I help women entrepreneurs find their next step with clarity and be able to take that step with grace. So this is a great topic to talk about. My background is science. I'm a mathematician. I worked on the Hubble Space Telescope, and then I answered a calling to become a spiritual healer. And so that's what I do. I incorporate that in my spiritual mentorship programs, and I work one-on-one with people and teach classes. And I also feel as if it's time for us to learn that we're really operating in many dimensions. We're already doing it, so we might as well become conscious about how to live in a multidimensional universe that we live in. And so I am helping a lot of women who are figuring out what their next step is. The last testimonial I just got from a client yesterday said that her sessions with me, she felt like she didn't know which direction to go in. And the way she gestured was every session with Rosemary kind of ticked me over until I felt like it all dropped in and I knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and what order to do it in. And I think that that was a really great description of the kind of work that we can do.
Wow. What a testimonial. Yeah. Thank you, Rosemary. And so what we're going to talk about tonight, as I said, is clarity and grace. So, Claudette, what does it mean to handle life with grace?
Humility, civility, like those are the biggest things I think that come to my mind, is like being humble and being kind is sometimes a lost art. It's almost as if we have to boast about what we do and how well we do it, when in reality we can simply walk through life gracefully and demonstrate to the world what we do and how we do it. And I think that for me, that is the best way to walk through the world, is just being humble and being kind. And it doesn't cost me anything at all.
I love that. So show, not tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. Rosemary, what do you want to add to that?
Well, I am in the mode, having lived on the planet for a very long time, that I want to learn my lessons with ease and grace. And, you know, I've had enough of the 2x4s upside the head from the universe or spirit. It's like, okay, I want to get it with grace. Like, so I'm kind of always scanning the horizon for what can I learn? Where is it? How can I learn? How fast can I learn? And I think that if we look at life as full of lessons for us, and it's just the lessons that help us, find our path through what we're doing, that's where the grace shows up. It's like, I'm open, I'm surrendering to whatever, and I will find the lesson in this without resisting or getting upset and stopping along the way. I will just move through it.
What does grace mean to you? What is that like? What does it look like, Rosemary, like the physical representation of grace?
Well, I don't know about a physical representation, except that I would say it's more like the flowing of a river. And so the way that water moves, and it's just it doesn't question anything. And it just finds its way around a rock or over a waterfall. It just keeps moving. I think that's how grace feels like movement, smooth movement.
Yeah. And peaceful, right? Very peaceful.
Mhm.
Claudette, anything you want to add to that?
Rosemary took those words right out of my mouth.
Pays to be a mystic.
Because I was thinking like flow, like a river. Like that's ease and grace for me. And whenever I think of ease and grace, I think of water. I think of this soft, gentle flow. I was thinking earlier, I was having a conversation with someone earlier, and I shared with them that I went through a period in my life where I called myself flighty. And they were like, "What? You're not flighty." And I said, "No, you know what? I realized that I so want to be in this space of ease and grace that I am open and receptive to the guidance of spirit. So wherever it leads, I'll follow." And so that's what it means to me. And so that's what I meant when I said Rosemary just took the words out of my mouth, because she talked about flowing like a river. And then she talked about, just going with the flow of the universe and just, and so, yes, like that is what it means to me, just to just be open and receptive and not be attached or married to any one thing, any one thought, any one idea, any one way of doing something, just being open to it.
I guess that some people might see when you're going with the flow and you're kind of meandering down the river, that could be seen as flighty. Oh, she doesn't stick to anything. Oh, she's always bouncing around. She's always, from the outside observer, sometimes people following that with grace, because our society really loves drama, and drama and grace cannot coexist. And so when you're not in drama, sometimes people think there's something wrong, don't they? Like, what's going on?
I think society values hustle. And I think that is the opposite of grace, because you're pushing against, like Sisyphus, you're trying to get that big boulder up the hill. And it feels to me like when we kind of let go of hustle and we just pay attention to the guidance that we're getting, or where we feel led and we're part of the plan and moving with the flow, then you don't have to hustle. You're carried away with the river.
Love that. Well, Claudette, when you have a decision to make or uncertain about the next step, because we are talking about how to take your next step with clarity and grace. So when you have a decision or you're uncertain, what is a helpful tool that you've used, and how has it helped you?
So, I know that this can be difficult for some people, but for me, it's sleep. I can remember years ago hearing people say, just sleep on it. Like that is what works for me, just sleeping on it. And for someone else, it may be meditation. I am challenged by meditation because I have a monkey brain. It's just always going and always thinking. And so the way that I shut it down is that I go to sleep. And so if I have a decision to make and I'm really stuck on which way to go, if I go to sleep, for me, it's the same as meditation. I am releasing everything. I'm releasing all thought, all reasoning, knowing that the decision has already been made for me. I just need to get out of the way. And I get out of the way by taking a nap or going to sleep. And when I wake up, the decision is already made. And what is important is that I not question it, that I not second guess it, that I know that the universe downloaded that for me. So this is what I need to go with. And that works for me.
I love that. And I have never heard anybody use sleep in this way before, but it makes such perfect sense, doesn't it?
Isn't
so
that what
you
that was Einstein's strategy?
I did not know that.
He would work on a problem and then take a nap to get the answer.
Yeah.
So you're another Einstein, Claudette.
There you go. There you go.
Mhm. I love it. Thank you.
Rosemary, is there a tool that you can share with us that you use?
Well, yes. I don't go to sleep. I do use meditation, but I'm in human design terms, that's one of the things that we learn about ourselves. When we learn our human design, we learn our best decision-making strategy. And for those of us who've been trained one way, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's not the top priority for me. So I'm what's called splenic, but it's intuitive. So I get the hits and I need to take the action that I'm led to do. And sometimes I will admit that I pull out my pendulum, because as a trained hypnotherapist, this is what I was learning to communicate with the unconscious mind and with my guides. So I really access my guides. I ask, I will draw oracle cards, but mostly I go with that, some people call it the gut feeling, and that it's like, oh, I've got that hit. I need to take action on this. And my husband has learned over time that, first of all, I have to be kind of in the energy of when I'm going to make the decision. I can't make decisions outside of that energy. If I'm not getting the hit, it's a don't make the decision yet. And when I get it, then it's like, okay, this is the direction. This is where I go. So it's pretty quick for me that way. And also understanding, for some people in human design terms, some people are called reflectors, and they have to wait for a whole cycle of the moon to make big decisions because they're feeling their way through all the phases of the moon before they get their answer. And so I think it's interesting that human design has tackled this very question of how do you make decisions? And it's like, oh, you're designed to make it certain different ways.
Mm-hmm. Because we certainly weren't taught to make decisions more than one way. It's like, it's either a yes or a no, and make it fast.
Exactly. And when you learn that some of us are designed to wait until we feel all the emotions and we get to that clarity again. It's like, I tell my generators and manifesting generators that your friend is to say, I'll get back to you. Right. And I think that when people are trying to force you into a decision and it doesn't feel right, that's when you start getting that you don't do self-care, you allow yourself to get upset. And if you say, I'll get back to you when I have clarity, I'm bringing that word back in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gives your whole system time to get into alignment.
Until I knew that about me, that I need to take a pause, I would so often, especially in my younger years, in my 20s and 30s, I would say yes to so many things. It could be something as simple as going to a bar after work with some friends. And I would say, oh yeah, I'll be there. And then I wouldn't go. And this is back before anybody could text you and see where you were or anything. And I would just make up some kind of lie about it, or I would say yes to something. And then I knew I wasn't going to go, but I'd have to call and tell them I'm not going. Anybody ever do that? And then just this lie that I would have to make up and tell. I mean, that is not grace. You do not live with grace in that. And just being forced by outside influences, I guess, to make decisions and to do things that we're really not ready to do or don't even want to do. Yet society kind of tells us that, oh, well, really ought to go do that, right? I mean, they're my friends, right? And so, boy, that was a great lesson for me to start learning, because I realized that it was a much nicer thing to do to say no, thank you up front, than to just stand somebody up or to lie to them. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't like lying. It doesn't make me feel very good. And it's hard to make up those lies and
Mhm.
remembering what you told them last time you didn't show up, right? So I'm just outing myself here with y'all. Nobody else ever done that, I'm sure.
Yes.
Right?
Well, I think you described the grace of giving yourself permission to say no.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're trained
Mhm.
to be people pleasers, but when we give ourselves permission to say no thanks, we can live with grace that way.
Yeah, I agree. Some of you may have heard me tell this years ago when I was in my corporate position. I was in corporate finance, and we had a new woman came in, and she was my boss, and she was over and fairly high position. And some of us had gotten to the habit of going out to the bar next door after work every Friday night. And the first Friday she was there, I went in and invited her to go with us. And she smiled and said very graciously, "No, thank you. That's not how I want to spend my evening." Well, for the moment, I felt like she just punched me in the gut. I remember just kind of going, and I turned around, I said, "Okay," like a little kid, "Okay, mommy, I'm sorry I asked you." But as I walked out of the door, I remember thinking, I want to be her when I grow up. Because she was so
Mm.
clear. I think I may have said it with a little more finesse, maybe, but she was so very clear
Mhm.
about what she wanted to do and what she didn't want to do. And what she was saying is, you need not ask me again. So she didn't have to make up a story or keep saying no or whatever. And that has helped. I mean, that's been 45 years ago, probably. So that really impressed me. So, okay, let's go back to, I'm gonna start with you, Rosemary. When you find yourself not being in grace as much, or just falling out of sorts, or just getting caught up in the news, in the world, in the turmoil, in the drama, what is one way that you bring yourself back?
Well, first of all, I try to avoid getting to that point.
Yeah, really.
And I move my perspective to what's the higher perspective on this. So I try to move myself and again back to what's the lesson, what's the higher perspective, what's really going on at a higher level than that. Or I would employ Claudette's tool and I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go escape. What I do, like before I go to sleep at night, I read Regency romance novels because it's set in the early 1800s in London with, dukes and earls and duchesses. And it's so different from my day-to-day life, from the news, from war, from strife. And so I use a little bit of time before I'm going to sleep to move into another time period, another set of mores. The whole experience is different from 21st century America. And when I get to do that, then I'm going to sleep and I end up turning off the light and saying things I'm grateful for. And that's how I go to sleep. So it's really about, I'm paying attention, but I'm not going into it and embracing it. And I'm also then finding a way to turn it off so that when I go to sleep, I'm not carrying that into my dream time.
Kind of resetting. Yeah. How romantic are they? Are they like harlequins? Or are they like the other ones? What they used to call those, bodice rippers?
I mostly read what are called clean regencies.
Just curious.
Yep.
I think that's a great strategy, and it's entertaining, but it does kind of clears everything out, doesn't it? And puts something in there that you didn't know before you read it.
It's also takes you out of the time. And so it makes that time-space continuum collapse. And that's kind of a fun thing to do.
Okay. Well, Claudette, what do you have other than sleep?
I breathe.
Breathe. Okay.
I breathe. When I am, when I find myself in those situations, I just sit and breathe for a moment and remind myself that The breath is what's important, not the craziness that's going on in the world. It's just the breath. Just breathe. And then if it's something that's really challenging me emotionally, then I ask myself, what is my lesson in this? What am I supposed to learn here? Why am I really upset? Because you know what I found? That when we're upset, a lot of times we're not upset for the reasons we think we're upset, because we put this superficial thing. I'm upset because Mary is not going with me to the movies, but it's more than that. Like, and so when I'm able to breathe, then I can like go back and say, okay, what is the real issue here? Why are you feeling this way? Like, that doesn't usually impact you in that way. And so what's happening now? And I find that it's not what's happening now. It's something that's going on inside my own head. It's kind of like the stories that we tell each other that, like, and when we think about it, it's really not true at all. But because I am in this space that's maybe not a very healthy mental space for me to be in, and then someone comes along and adds to that, then yeah, it's like it reminds me to stop. Because if I wasn't beating up on myself, then that person wouldn't have been able to dump on me. Like, so what is happening here that I was doing that and I thought that this was okay? Like, so I go back and I breathe some more. And so then that helps me to calm down. Yeah. And to just remember. And you know, the other thing is, someone taught me this acronym for personal emotional teachers, and they're called PETS. Personal emotional teachers. And so how funny is that for me when someone is really irritating me and I realize that in this moment, this is my personal emotional teacher. And so I can't help but laugh.
And say thank you, right? And say thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for being my pet today.
Wow. That's good. Well, I'm going to hear a final thought from both of you. What is the absolute wisest thing that you can share, Rosemary, about this whole idea of clarity and grace?
You know, I'm going to share my mantra, which I know you've heard before, but it feels to me as if what allows you to live with that flow that we've been talking about and grace is to embrace the idea that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have at any given moment. Even me. That was the hardest part. Applying it to everybody else was easier. But that idea that everyone's doing the best they can takes some of the pressure off of you. And you also get to decide then healthy boundaries, as Shelley was talking about, and that notion that we don't have to allow people whose best isn't something we want in our field. We don't have to allow them into our lives. But that whole idea just takes everything out of the stress of trying to control anybody else, or even the situations that we're in. That notion that we're all part of a big plan. We're actually all one. We aren't separate. We don't have to deal with that. And I think once you get into that idea, it allows the flow to be much easier and takes away a lot of the stress of, I've got to control it. I got to make it happen. Or why aren't they doing this? You just don't go there.
Yeah. And we get into so much right and wrong. This is the right side. This is the wrong side. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. I've loved that since the first time I heard it many years ago. I first heard somebody say your parents did the best job they could.
Right.
And then it was reframed to say your parents did the best job they knew how, given what they knew, which I thought was a more true statement.
Yes.
Yeah, I love this, that everyone is doing the best they can with the resources that they have. And I don't think I can't look around and find a place where that isn't true, right?
Right.
So it takes me being the policewoman of the universe kind of off my plate. I don't have to really sit there and judge how people are doing their life, because none of these things that we're talking about that get us all churned up can coexist with grace, right? Claudette, what do you want to say?
Mm. So, I loved what Rosemary said, because it makes me think of one of the sayings that I have is that we are all works in progress. Like we're doing, like you said, we're doing the best we can, But what came to my mind with your question, for clarity and grace, is simply being open and receptive to the guidance of spirit. It will never lead us wrong. Like one of the things that I believe above everything, almost everything, the universe conspires with people, events, and circumstances for our highest good. Let the universe conspire, because it knows a lot more than I do.
Yes.
And it has a lot more goodness in its toolkit that I am aware of. And so I just want to just let the universe do its thing. And I'm just going to be here to receive all that goodness.
Just get out of the way of the universe, right? Yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you. I was so glad you both said
Mhm.
yes to this topic tonight. And I would ask all of you ladies here with us, if you would unmute yourselves and help me applaud our wonderful panel and thank them for their wisdom tonight. So
Yeah, that was awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Much needed.
Mhm.
Yes,
Thank you
do
very
again.
much.
Do
Thank
some
you.
more.
Gonna
I'm
breathe.
taller, taller.
And
Mhm.
we're going to stop. I'm going to stop the recording in a minute, and then we'll take some questions for anybody who wants to stay. But I want to thank anyone who's watching this live in the Facebook group or the replay on our YouTube channel. If you'd like to join us for one of our 9 free Zoom gatherings every month, or an in-person meeting in Columbia, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, or Tallahassee, Florida, just comment and I will tell you how to do that. Or you can go to my website, OPWGC.com. Find out all about our community. My website, Rosemary's website, and Claudette's 2 websites are also in the text of this video. Thanks for watching, everyone.